during the Depression, my father lost every job he had. He had about 3 or 4 or 5 of them, but my mom kept steady. And then they all moved into the Delafield Avenue because the family needed the help. And by then, Fernando and my grandmother had died. So their others, youngest ones, were in high school, and we moved in. I was only about 1 or 2, because until then, my mother's mother, my other grandmother, took care of me in Brooklyn. But when we all moved, then we moved to Rutherford. And then Carlota was the one who took over taking care of me. And I don't remember that because I was only 2, 1.5. But I do remember visiting my Aunt Grace, because there's a picture, there was, in my mother's album, of like a hospital on the second floor window, a very nice young lady waving at me, and in that picture I am dressed in my little snowsuit with my mother, and that was me waving at my aunt. So when I went to Cuba, I had to describe that to my cousins because they had never seen snow. That was in Lyndhurst, and we could walk, because at that time we didn't have a car, and I don't think that there were buses going to the hospital. So anyway, I know it was Lyndhurst because we had to cross what was then Lyndhurst Avenue. And every time we had to cross Lyndhurst Avenue, my Aunt Carlota would grab onto me like, oh, for dear hell. I mean, so Rutherford and Lyndhurst must be close to each other?
Right next to each other.
Oh, okay, fine. So that much of Rutherford, I do remember being very little and being taken places. And the library. Yes, my Aunt Carlota used to take me to the library. Not every week, but once in a while. And I remember looking forward to when she'd say, we're going to the library. I love that. We'd walk. And I don't remember anything except the steps. Red brick steps going down, not a basement. It was more like street level, a little bit below. Those trips to the library, I have it so vivid in my mind. And my aunt dragging me. I had a picture of him. I had seen pictures of him, so I knew what he looked like, but I never met him. And I know that he was a composer, and he was a teacher. And the way my mother told me the story is that he was also my grandmother's music teacher, piano teacher. So I always heard, that that's how they met, or that's, how little girls always think of romance. And that I always used to think of it. I used to ask my mom, and she said, oh, well, I don't know. I didn't know them then, but yes, I know them later, and that's how they met each other, with the music. So all my life, he was, to me, associated with music. He was a band leader, and that he was very strict with the boys and the ones in the band, because he was a perfectionist. My father always said that. And my father couldn't be in the band. He was the youngest of the boys, so he didn't get to be in the band until he was 11. I do know that my mother and father already knew each other and were writing to each other when the Callejos moved from Puerto Rico to New York. My mother stayed and followed, but not right away. In other words, maybe 2 or 3 years went by before my mother finished school and went to New York on her own, which was very unusual in those days. So as far as before that, I don't know what happened. I only know that they continued their friendship and got engaged. And the families, my mother's family moved a couple of years later also to Brooklyn. So the relationship between the two families kept up, you know, like people from back home always get together. I know that Fernando got very sick. That part of it, when my mom and dad got engaged, that's when he was in the hospital. And unfortunately, he did die. These are the stories my mom is telling me, that he died just about 2 or 3 weeks before their wedding had been already scheduled. And they were going to cancel the wedding when my grandfather or my grandparents, I guess they decided, they told him, no, 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 don't cancel, just go right ahead with the plans. And they did. And he died before the wedding. And my grandmother got very sick, his wife. And she died just a couple of 2, 3 months later. At that time, they were all living in 183 Delafield Avenue. Not me, but my grandfather and my grandmother, Carlota, Margarita, Cecilia. Grace was in the hospital, and Ophelia and Olga. And Carlota had 2 sons. So all those people were living in that little house. When my mother gave me those 2 pictures in that little frame, she said this was taken on our engagement day. And we were only 20. That much she told me on purpose. And I don't know why she said that, because I threw it in her face. When I wanted to get married, I was only 19. And my father said, you're too young to get married. And I said, well, you got married when you were 20. So, you know. But that's true. I love those pictures. And they were the same age. That's another thing that surprised me. At my age, people usually were older getting married, and they weren't the same age. The man was always older than the girl. But these 2, they were the same age. Well, I also remember that my cousins, Eddie and Mary McKenna, lived, they had their house on Delafield Avenue, about on this side of the street, same as ours, halfway maybe, I don't know. It wasn't right next door. And we used to get together on, I guess, holidays or, yeah, I remember on the 4th of July with the fireworks. You know, all the little kids and the little streamers and things. And everybody was always looking out for me because I was the youngest, and all the rest of them were boys. I was sitting on 93 Delafield Avenue. We had a Victrola, the kind that you wind, and it was my birthday. My 4th birthday, I'll never forget it. I was sitting on the big rocking chair with my Aunt Lolly, putting my little Mary Jane shoes with the little hook. They didn't have, I don't know, laces, pretty. And my mother had given me, for my birthday, a record for the Victrola of nursery rhymes with music, singing nursery rhymes. And I think that record played all day. To this day, I can sing all those nursery rhymes for you on my 4th birthday. But I can right now I can look down and see my little black, shiny Mary Jane shoes. Oh, that was so nice. It was beautiful when I look back, because to me, music was everything. And when my mom gave me that for my birthday, my own record, oh, wow. My father's favorite relaxing time was bringing out his operas, the operas and the symphonies. And when my father was home, there was no radio There was no radio, there was nothing but music. Sometimes he'd play his own. He played the flute until the day he died, practically. When I was little at Delafield Avenue, that was Margarita was her practicing the opera, which is nice. And then the piano, Ophelia, da, 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 and then the other one, da, 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 and then the other one singing. And then when Cecilia was home, oh my God, the castanets, and the dancing, constant movement, constant music. It was lovely. When I look back on it now, I realize it was really very good. During the Depression, my father having a lot of trouble finding a job to support us. Plus, all of us were living in that one little house. My uncle Sandalio was already in Cuba and had been for years. My two cousins, Trini and Beatrice, were born there. And he had a business, a very good import business in Havana. So he sent for him. He said, hey, Ralph, why don't you just come down here and help me with my business? You have a steady job, you know, bring the family. And of course, my mother got a job like that with the Cuban trading of all things for Havana, Cuba, sugar brokerage. Yeah, she did very well. Bilingual. So both of them worked. I went to school. I went to a nice German school, American school. Yeah, it was very good. I loved living in Havana. Quite different. But I remember getting there because I had never been on a boat. The boat was from New York to Havana, straight to Havana. We didn't have to change boats. New York to Havana. But what I remember is standing on the rail when you get to a dock and you look down, you see people down on the, whatever, what do you call it, a wharf. And I see these two little figures. Well, there was four of them, my aunt and uncle. I didn't look at them. I saw the two little girls, and I'm waving at the two little girls, and they're waving back at me. And the first thing is, I'm talking to them in English. Came natural. And they're answering me in Spanish. And I knew Spanish by then. I mean, I had been at home plenty of Spanish. I understood it and spoke it. And so I had to answer them in Spanish. And I remember that the youngest, Trini, said to her sister, she speaks Spanish. You told me she didn't speak any Spanish. They were shocked because I couldn't speak Spanish. Oh, she was mad because she wanted to teach me Spanish. I think that's the reason. I can't remember. All I know is that I was put into the first grade and so was she. So she was going to teach me Spanish and I was going to help her with her English. Anyway, that was so cute. That's my first memory of my cousins, of my family. And we stayed with them. We stayed with them the first maybe 5 or 6 months until my mother and father found our own apartment. But there's music again. My uncle, Sandalio, on the piano or the mandolin. Every single night after dinner was music. But I was used to that. I was used to the music for everything. I loved it. I still do. Well, I do remember Jimmy Ferguson was still there. And he was 12 or 13. He was a whole foot taller than I was. And for a girl, I was very tall because I was only 12, but I never grew any taller. I was already 5'3", which is tall for a girl in Cuba. So when I see this 12-year-old, I was surprised. But anyway, he was really cute. Of course, almost teenagers, you know how girls at 12 think they're teenagers already. Well, I thought I was a teenager already, and we had a lot of fun. I wanted to jitterbug, but he didn't know how. I had to wait for my cousin Billy. He taught me how to jitterbug that year in Rutherford. My Titi Lali did not like the music for the jitterbug. We didn't care. We jitterbugged anyway. I still jitterbug the way Billy taught me. It's funny. That's when I jitterbug. Up here. I'm a very good dancer up here nowadays. Well, first of all, when I found out you were going to have that ceremony, I was so thrilled because I'm one of the few left that actually knew those uncles and aunts and cousins. So I really felt thrilled that Rutherford was remembering the Callejos. I thought that was fantastic. And then when I got there, I saw the house, and all those memories came back because it hasn't changed. It hasn't changed a bit. Oh, it's prettier, that's all, you know. But I really have some happy memories. I loved it, and I loved the reception that we got. I felt at home. That's really funny that I should feel at home after so many years. There's just something warm about the place. Maybe the ball field too, you know, the ball field makes it feel home. Our little kids playing, high school right around the corner, yeah. I am very thrilled at the fact that Fernando's plaque is right next to the fence. I love that because that's the window that my Aunt Lali used to call for me when I was marching with the kids and the high school band. But there were no trees. It was just the fence. But it's that spot, it's exactly where the plaque is now. Because I remember when you gave it to me that I was there talking. Well, anyway, I was standing right in front of the plaque when I looked behind and I said, that's the window that my Titi Lali used to keep calling, Nana, dinner's ready. Oh, I also came one more time when I was in high school. Somebody took us for a drive or something like that, and we couldn't find Delafield Avenue. We went to Rutherford looking for Delafield Avenue. We couldn't find it. Maybe the new road. This was already 1945, 46, I think. We tried to find Delafield Avenue, and we couldn't find Delafield Avenue. But I remember by then, there was no more Holy Angels.